Welcome to Staffworks Explain. If you are here for the first time, please consider subscribing to this channel. In this video, we'll be looking at a new airport beyond Jkia, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, where we examine the ongoing public discussion about building a new international airport to ease the congestion or pressure on Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, stressing that this idea is not yet a formal government decision, but a response to long-standing congestion and failed expansion attempt in this airport. We'll compare Kenya's situations with how other countries like Rwanda and Ethiopia have handled similar capacity constraints and weigh the cost, risk, and timelines of expanding Jomo Kenyatta International Airport versus developing a completely new aviation hub. For years now, Kenya aviation debate has revolved from one central question. And this question is how to expand Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Increasingly, however, a different idea has entered public discourse, not expanding JKIA at all, but building an entirely new international airport elsewhere. This is not a decision. It is not a signed contract. There is no approved site, no completed feasibility study, no procurement process, and no secured financing. What exists instead is a series of public statements by senior government officials, prompted by real capacity constraints at JKIA and the repeated failure of past expansion plans. At this stage, the idea of a new airport is best understood as thinking aloud, not a policy, but thinking rooted in genuine structural problems. Why is this conversation and why is it shifting? We know that JKIA has been operating under strain. Passenger number has been growing steadily, surpassing the airport original design capacity. Key facilities were installed as temporary solutions following the fire tragedy in 2013 and have remained in service far longer than intended. The airport operates with a single runway. Any major work must be undertaken while the airport remains fully operational, raising cost, complexity, and risk. Attempts to resolve this through expansion have repeatedly halted or stalled. The most recent and ambitious effort was a public-private partnership proposal to modernize and operate JKIA. This collapsed amid public opposition, legal scrutiny, as well as political unease about concession terms. That collapse left the government without a clear expansion pathway and reopened a fundamental question. If upgrading JKIA is this difficult, is it time to consider a different approach altogether? It is from this context that the idea of a new international airport has emerged. This is the Konza idea and what it really represents. Konza Technopolis has featured prominently in public remarks as a possible location for a new airport. The logic is straightforward. Konza lies outside Nairobi, which has a congested airspace and offers a room for large-scale development, and already exists within Kenya Long-Term Vision 2030 planning framework. An airport there could be designed from scratch, unconstrained by surrounding settlement or legacy infrastructure. But precision matters. There is no confirmed site, no gazetted land acquisition, no environmental or social impact assessment which is underway. What exists are statements suggesting that such an airport could be built and that construction could optimistically begin within a few years. From a policy and a planning perspective, this is typical of early stage infrastructure signaling. Government often float ideas publicly to test reaction, attract investor interest, and signal strategic intent long before committing to execution. Is this realistic or is just rhetoric? Critics argue that the talk of a new airport risks becoming a distraction, a way to move attention away from the unresolved problems at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and the collapse of the earlier plans. That concern is not unfounded. Kenya has a history of ambitious infrastructure announcements that struggle to progress beyond concept. At the same time, the idea itself is not irrational. Globally and increasingly in Africa, countries reach point where expanding an old airport becomes more expensive and disrupting than building a new one. Jkia sits in a constrained urban environment. Any significant expansion interferes directly with live operations with immediate economic consequence. From a planning standpoint, a new airport allows for better runway orientation, modern terminal layouts, future expansions, capacity, integrated cargo zones, purpose-built rail, road rings. These advantages are real, but they come with equally real costs, risks, and long timelines. What other aviation hubs have done in Africa? Kenya is not alone in facing this dilemma. In Ethiopia, Addis Ababa Bole International Airport underwent multiple expansion but still became constrained as Ethiopian Airlines grew into a global carrier. Rather than discontinue incremental upgrades, Ethiopia has opted to develop a completely new facility at Bishoftu, which is designed to handle up to 110 million passengers annually in the long term. Construction began after years of planning, with estimated cost exceeding $12 billion. The decision reflected recognition that Bole could no longer scale to meet future demand without an acceptable disruption. In Rwanda, Kigali International Airport reached its physical limit early. The response was the Bugesera International Airport, which is located outside the city, developed in phases and backed by a mix of state funding, strategic airline investment, and development finance. Bugesera was not built because Kigali Airport failed, but because it could not grow. Elsewhere on the continent, we have Senegal International Airport, which replaced Dakar's airport for similar reasons. While Nigeria continues to debate whether Lagos Mohammed International Airport can be meaningfully expanded or whether satellite airports are inevitable. These examples shows that when hub airports become structurally constrained, countries face strategic fork, push expansion to its limit, or start again elsewhere. Let's now look at expansion versus the new build, how the costs are estimated. The economic comparison between expanding Jkia and building a new airport is not about simple price tags. It's about how costs are structured and what they will buy. Expanding an existing airport like Jkia involves complex engineering in a live environment. Terminal upgrades are typically costed per square meter of built space, factoring aviation-grade systems, security, baggage handling, passengers processing, among other things. Runway construction is even more capital intensive, with costs driven by land availability, soil conditions, pavement thickness, lighting, navigation systems, among other things. Because operations must continue, contractors price in disruption risk and extended construction periods. Past feasibility work around Jkia expansion have indicated that while terminal upgrades might be commercially attractive, runway and airside work are often not requiring public funding because they do not generate direct revenue returns. This mismatch was one of the challenges in structural private investment. By contrast, a new airport requires high upfront capital but allows planners to design efficiently. Cost estimates for new airports are typically built from runway length and and terminal capacity targets, cargo facilities, access infrastructure, land acquisition, and contingency allowances. Regional comparators such as Rwanda, Bugesera place these costs in the range of $2 billion or even higher than that, with larger ambitions like what is happening in Ethiopia costing significantly more, which is costing $12 billion US. The trade-off is time. New airports take longer to plan, approve, and build. They do not solve immediate capacity problems, but they can define aviation capacities for decades. Where this leaves Kenya today? At present, the idea of a new airport exists as a concept, not a project. It reflects frustration with JKI's limitations, awareness of regional competition, and political pressure to articulate long-term solutions. It may also serve as leverage, a signal that Kenya is not locked into a single path and is willing to explore alternatives as negotiations, financing, and partnership continue. What matters is what follows. The idea is serious, to move quietly into feasibility studies, environmental assessment, and funding discussion, if not to remain what it is today, a plausible idea in speeches and not yet grounded in implementation. So in conclusion, we can say that the discussion around the new international airport beyond Jkia sits in an uncomfortable but important space between concept and commitment. It is not fantasy. The capacity constraints of Jkia are real. And regional examples show that building new hubs is sometimes the rational response. At the same time, no formal decision has been made and no binding steps have been taken. For now, this is strategic thinking expressed publicly. Politicians, planners, and policymakers are testing the idea that could make sense, but only if it is followed by hard analysis, transparent decisions, and disciplined execution. Until then, Kenya's aviation remains open, unresolved, and under debate. So thank you for reaching this far. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing to this channel. You can watch other videos that we have made on different topics. Also share and leave a comment. Thank you.